Hey, this is Liam, your narrator. Just want to say a very quick thank you to all of you listening, watching, commenting, liking, subscribing, sharing, and all of that good stuff. It really helps out the channel and is much appreciated and very encouraging for me. So with all that said, let's get into the story. In the dreary town of Grimwood, nestled beneath a sky perpetually veiled by an ashen cloak, lived a lonely bin man named Arthur. Despite the bleak surroundings, Arthur took pride in his work, for he believed that cleanliness was paramount in a world where despair clung to every shadow. He'd been collecting rubbish for the better part of 3 decades, and though his life lacked excitement, he was content with his monotonous existence. One fateful Tuesday morning, as the wind whispered eerie secrets through the twisted branches of withered trees, Arthur's mundane routine was shattered. The air hung heavy with a sense of foreboding as he approached the last house on Ravenwood Lane, a decrepit Victorian manor that had stood abandoned for years. This house had never been part of his usual route, but today, a solitary bin lingered by its rusted gates. With a furrowed brow, Arthur hesitantly approached the bin, its presence inexplicable. As he lifted the lid, a nauseating stench assaulted his nostrils, and he gagged involuntarily. The contents of the bin were concealed by a tattered crimson-stained cloth. Steeling himself, Arthur reached out a trembling hand and slowly pulled back the fabric, revealing a grotesque sight that would haunt him for the remainder of his days. The mangled remains of a young girl, her face contorted in a silent scream. Panicked, Arthur stumbled back and dropped the cloth, his eyes wide with terror. The wind picked up, howling like a tortured soul as the skies darkened, casting the world into a menacing gloom. Arthur felt a chill run down his spine, and his heart raced as though it sought to escape his chest.
"It was you who found her, wasn't it?"
A raspy voice whispered in his ear, and Arthur spun around to find an old woman standing behind him. Her eyes were black as pitch, and her smile revealed a mouth of rotting teeth. "Who are you?" Arthur choked out, his voice quivering with fear.
"I am the keeper of the accursed,"
she replied, her voice a melodic purr.
"and this is your punishment for trespassing where you were never meant to be."
Arthur's knees buckled, and he fell to the ground, the weight of his discovery and the old woman's ominous words crushing him. "What have I done?" he sobbed. "Please, I didn't mean any harm." The old woman cackled, her laughter echoing through the empty street.
"Your life will forever be plagued by darkness and despair, Arthur,"
she hissed.
"The girl's spirit will haunt your every waking moment. Her screams a constant reminder of your folly."
As the woman vanished into the shadows, Arthur clutched his head in his hands, his mind a chaotic whirlwind of horror and regret. The ghostly visage of the dead girl appeared before him, her eyes filled with anguish and accusation. In the months that followed, Arthur's life spiraled into a waking nightmare. He was unable to find solace in the mundane tasks that once brought him comfort, for the girl's spirit pursued him relentlessly. Her screams filled his ears, her bloodied image forever seared in his vision. His fellow binmen, concerned for Arthur's well-being, tried to offer support, but he pushed them away, consumed by the torment that gnawed at his soul. "I can't escape her," he muttered to himself, his eyes hollow and haunted. Arthur's life became a prison of his own making. Each day a battle to endure the relentless onslaught of the supernatural. The darkness that had once only clung to the shadows of Grimwood now dwelled within him, consuming his every thought and action. His once simple and content life was now tainted with the blood of the innocent, and no amount of atonement could wash away the guilt that stained his soul. Arthur, once a proud and meticulous bin man, was now a shell of his former self. The other townspeople whispered about him in hushed tones, casting worried glances as he passed by. His gaunt frame and haunted eyes were a testament to the horrors he bore. In a desperate bid for redemption, Arthur sought out the old woman, believing she had the key to lifting the curse. He searched Grimwood's darkest corners, chasing shadows and whispers in the hope of finding her, but she remained elusive, a spectre that danced just beyond his reach. One stormy night, as lightning illuminated the darkness, Arthur found himself standing before the abandoned Victoria Manor on Ravenwood Lane once again. The ghostly girl's visage appeared before him, her eyes filled with sorrow. "Please," Arthur implored, his voice barely audible over the thunder, "help me find a way to release you and end this torment." The girl's spirit seemed to soften, and she reached out a bloodied hand, her gaze locked on Arthur's desperate eyes. As her hand touched his chest, a searing pain shot through him, and he gasped. But as quickly as it had come, the pain vanished, and with it, the girl's spirit. Confused, Arthur stumbled back to his home, the downpour drenching him to the bone. As he slept that night, his dreams were void of torment, and for the first time in months, he found a semblance of peace. Upon waking, Arthur discovered a note pinned to his door, its parchment damp and worn. In shaky, spidery handwriting it read, "One act of kindness can break the darkest curse." With the girl's spirit finally at rest, Arthur was left to piece together the fragments of his shattered life. The shadows that had once engulfed him gradually receded, and though the memories of the horror he had witnessed remained, he found solace in the knowledge that his actions had set a tortured soul free. As the years passed, Arthur never spoke of the girl or the curse that had befallen him, but he vowed to live his life in her memory, a testament to the power of compassion and redemption. In the dreary town of Grimwood, the skies remained perpetual grey, but within Arthur's heart, a glimmer of light had been rekindled, and though darkness continued to linger in the shadows, it could not extinguish the flame of hope that burned within him. In the dreary town of Duskhaven, where the sun seldom broke through the thick layer of cloud, a garbage truck rumbled along its route, its team of workers oblivious to the horrors that awaited them. The town had always been steeped in darkness and whispers, but the men of the garbage truck team had long grown accustomed to the eerie atmosphere. One morning, as the crew sorted through the discarded trash, they stumbled upon a series of black plastic bags, each one emitting a pungent metallic scent. Their hands, shaking with a mix of dread and morbid curiosity, opened the bags to reveal a chilling discovery: chopped up body parts, the flesh still fresh, and a pool of blood at the bottom of each bag. The crew stared in horror, their hearts pounding in their chests. "What kind of sick person would do this?" muttered Steve, the youngest member of the team. "We need to call the police," urged Ben, the team leader, his voice barely concealing the panic that gripped him. As they prepared to report the gruesome discovery, they noticed an intricate symbol drawn in blood on the bottom of one of the bags. The sight of it filled them with a sense of unease that went beyond the grisly contents of the bags themselves. Unbeknownst to the crew, they had stumbled upon the remnants of a sinister ritual perpetuated by a demonic cult that lurked in the shadows of Duskhaven. The cult had been preparing to summon a powerful demon, using the remains of their unfortunate victim as a conduit for their dark magic. With the disruption of the ritual, the balance of power was thrown into chaos, and the demon, once under the cult's control, was now unleashed upon the unsuspecting town. As the days passed, the members of the garbage truck team found themselves haunted by nightmarish visions, their dreams invaded by a monstrous presence that seemed to grow stronger with each passing moment. The once familiar streets of Duskhaven became a twisted labyrinth filled with sinister shadows and disembodied whispers. The psychological torment soon took its toll on the crew. Consumed by paranoia, they began to turn on one another, their minds unraveling under the strain of the demonic influence. "We're being punished for meddling with things we don't understand," Steve hissed, his eyes wild with fear. "No, we have to fight this," Ben insisted, his voice strained. "We need to find a way to banish the demon and put an end to this nightmare." Their desperation mounting, the team sought out the town's hidden underbelly, delving into the dark secrets that lurked beneath Duskhaven's gloomy facade. They soon discovered that the only way to defeat the demon was to complete the ritual that had been interrupted, binding the creature and sealing it away once more. With time running out and the demon's power growing stronger by the day, the crew reluctantly decided to confront the cult, using their knowledge of the ritual as leverage. As they descended into the cult's lair, the air, thick with the stench of decay and the hum of dark incantations, they knew that their very souls were at stake. "Help us stop the demon," Ben pleaded, his voice shaking as he faced the cult's leader, a hooded figure draped in shadows.
"You meddled with the wrong forces beyond your comprehension,"
the leader snarled, his voice dripping with contempt.
"But perhaps there is still hope. Together, we can banish the demon and restore the balance."
United by their fear and desperation, the garbage truck team and the cultists embarked on a harrowing journey into the heart of darkness, their fates intertwined as they sought to banish the demon that had been unleashed on Duskhaven. With the cult's guidance, the team gathered the necessary components for the ritual, each one more macabre than the last. As they prepared to confront the demon, they steeled themselves against the overwhelming dread that threatened to consume them. In the depths of the night, the team and the cultists gathered in a forsaken corner of Duskhaven, the air thick with anticipation and terror. They formed a circle around the blood-stained symbol, their voices trembling as they chanted the ancient incantations that would seal the demon's fate. As the ritual reached its climax, the demon itself emerged from the shadows, its monstrous form twisting and writhing as it fought against the forces that it sought to bind. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the very air seemed to scream in protest. The garbage truck team, though terrified, held firm, their resolve strengthened by the knowledge that they alone could save their town from the demon's wrath. As the final words of the incantation were spoke, a blinding flash of light filled the night, and the demon was pulled back into the void from which it had come, its anguished cries echoing through the darkness. Exhausted and shaken, the garbage team and the cultists stared at one another, their mutual animosity momentarily forgotten in the wake of their harrowing ordeal. The cult's leader nodded to Ben, a grudging respect in his eyes.
"You have saved us all,"
he said, his voice barely a whisper. As the cultists disappeared back into the shadows, the garbage truck team made their way back to the familiar streets of Duskhaven, the weight of their actions heavy on their minds. The town, once plagued by darkness and whispers, was now free from the demon's influence, the air filled with a fragile sense of hope. Though the team would never forget the horrors they had witnessed, they returned to their work with a newfound determination, their bond stronger than ever. They had faced the worst that Duskhaven had to offer and had emerged victorious, their souls forever marked by the shadows that they had conquered together. I never thought I'd end up as a garbage woman, but here I am, sifting through the trash of the wealthy, searching for treasure in the waste. It's not glamorous, but it pays the bills. I'm used to the smells and the grime, but today was different. As I rummaged through a particularly large pile of garbage, my hand brushed against something hard and cold. I pulled it out, and to my surprise, it was an amulet of some kind, etched with strange symbols. I couldn't help but feel a chill run down my spine as I stared at it, feeling its weight in my palm. I slipped the amulet on, and as I did, a darkness seemed to descend upon me. I felt as though something was watching me, and it wasn't friendly. But I ignored the feeling, telling myself it was just my imagination. That night, I had the most vivid nightmare of my life. I was walking through a dark forest, and with each step the trees seemed to close in on me. I heard whispers on the wind and strange guttural noises that made my skin crawl. Suddenly, a figure appeared before me, shrouded in darkness. It beckoned me closer, and as I approached, I felt a strange energy emanating from it. It spoke to me, promising me power beyond my wildest dreams if only I would serve it. I woke in a cold sweat, the amulet still hanging from my neck. I tried to shake off the nightmare, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Over the next few days, I began to notice changes in myself. I was irritable, quick to anger, and my thoughts were filled with dark, brooding themes. The slightest inconvenience would set me off, and I found myself lashing out at those around me. One day I was sorting through the garbage when I overheard a conversation between two of the residents of the wealthy neighbourhood. They were discussing the disappearance of several people in the area and rumours of a dark and sinister force at work. I couldn't help but feel a sense of dread wash over me. Could it be that the amulet was somehow connected to these disappearances? I tried to remove the amulet, but it wouldn't budge. It was as though it was fused to my skin. That night, I had another nightmare. This time, the figure was more distinct and it spoke to me with more urgency. It demanded that I carry out its bidding and warned me of the consequences if I refused. I woke up in a panic, my heart racing. I knew I had to get rid of the amulet, but I didn't know how. As the days passed, my behaviour became more erratic. I would hear voices whispering in my ear, urging me to do things that I knew were wrong. The people around me began to distance themselves, and I could feel myself slipping further into darkness. Then one day, a glimmer of hope. A man come up to me, offering to buy the amulet for a large sum of money. At first I was hesitant, but as he spoke, I could feel the amulet's grip on me weakening. I handed the amulet over, and as soon as it was out of my possession, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders. The darkness had been consuming me, and it was beginning to dissipate, and I felt like myself again. But the worst was yet to come. The man who bought the amulet was none other than a demon who had been searching for it for centuries, and he had tricked me into wearing it, and now he had it back in his possession, free to wreak havoc on the world. I watched in horror as the man transformed into a grotesque, demonic creature, his eyes blazing with an otherworldly fire. He let out a deafening roar, and I could feel the ground shake beneath my feet. As I tried to run, I heard the demon's voice in my head, taunting me with the knowledge that I had unknowingly played a part in unleashing him upon the world. The guilt and shame were overwhelming, and I fell to my knees, unable to bear the weight of my actions. In that moment, I knew what I had to do. I gathered all the strength I had left, and with a fierce determination I tackled the demon, sending us both hurtling into the abyss. I don't know how long we fell, but it felt like an eternity. And then suddenly, we were back in the forest from my nightmares. The demon laying defeated, and I felt a sense of relief washing over me. But the amulet was still out there, waiting to be found by someone else. I knew I had to make sure it never fell into the wrong hands again. With a heavy heart, I destroyed the amulet, shattering it to 1,000 pieces. And as I made my way back to the world of the living, I knew that I'd never be the same. The experience had changed me in ways that I couldn't even imagine or begin to comprehend. But I also knew that I had done what I could to make things right, and that was all that mattered. From that day forward, I made a vow to live my life with purpose and meaning, and to do what I could to make the world a better place. And even though the memory of the amulet and the demons still haunt me, I take solace in knowing that I had faced my fears and come out on the other side victorious. Hey, it's Liam again. This is a little Easter egg for all of you who have stayed right up until the end and listened to all of the stories. Big thank you to all of you. And I look forward to sharing more stories with you very soon in the next video. Take care.